It's Women on Wednesday on The Dana Barrett Show.
All right, we are back. It is Women on Wednesday, and we love to feature great women around town and abroad and everywhere in the world and in the country doing amazing things. But today it's right here locally in Atlanta, I guess truly and beyond. Taffi Dollar is hanging out with us. Officially, your title is CEO of Aero Global Entertainment. Is that what we're saying, Taffi?
Yeah, that sounds good. Close enough.
All right. What would you say?
I would say founder of Prestige, a women's organization as well.
Okay.
So
an author.
Author.
You're one of those
Gender
women.
Strategist. That's newer.
Oh, I like
last
that.
couple of years.
Gender Strategist.
Yeah.
You're one of those like super women that has a bajillion titles, which is why I felt like I could sort of pick one and run with it and you'd be okay.
Well, we wear so many hats as women. So, I mean, you just easily go from one to the other.
So for people who don't know your background, kind of fill us in a little bit on who you are and how you sort of got to where you are right now.
Sure. So a native Atlantan, Georgia Peach, as they say, born and raised, product of public school, and went to Georgia State and majored in mental health and human services. After that, went and got my master's in marriage and family therapy. So from there, just really wanted to do human work, human service work, wanted to go into hospital administration. Married my husband, a minister. He started a church. We kind of started doing together, built a family, been married 33 years.
Wow.
And so recently I've been doing a lot of work in gender strategy, gender studies, women's studies, really just wanting more to flatten organizations and help to deal with male domination in fields that are predominantly male-dominated.
All right. So listen, I want to ask a little bit more about sort of what brought you to that in particular, because I feel like we're in the midst of last year, I think everybody was saying the year of the woman, but I want to say it's stretching beyond a year. So now what are we calling it? The era of the woman?
Yeah, that's a good word.
Mm-hmm. And I think we all have our jumping off points, the moment when we feel like things have to change and we need to be a part of that, right?
Sure.
And I know for me, in a very different way, I was doing a business talk radio show and then Trump happened and I couldn't keep my mouth shut anymore. And fast forward, now I'm at a different radio station doing a whole different kind of show. So, for you, what was that sort of moment where you said, okay, I need to get serious about this gender issue?
It happened for me, Johannesburg 2014. I went there to speak on a panel and conference and just heard more about sexism and some of the things that were going on there culturally. Mm-hmm. And so it just set off a light bulb to really go back home and really do my own work and my own biases and start dealing with some of those own personal issues and things and upbringings and experiences that I had.
Yeah.
And so from there, the work started, and I've just been really in the trenches.
Okay, Taffi Dollar hanging out with us right now. As we said, a woman with many titles, Gender Strategist. I think we're going to go with that for the rest of the show. I like that. But so what specifically are you working on as it relates to trying to figure out this gender problem?
Well, we're doing quite a bit. I am working on a documentary, and so we're talking about even in nonprofit organizations how you can deal with serving alongside with men and women, how they complement each other. We shouldn't compete. Learning how to recognize the equality to lead, the equality to serve, being able to serve side by side. We flatten our own organization, and so we're still working through that and doing a lot of, work in the trenches. So it's quite a bit to really debunk and unpack, but we're getting there. Change takes time. It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, and one of the complaints we hear from a lot of women is that things are really creeping ever so slowly in the right direction, if at all.
Right.
There's a new report that just came out over the last 48 hours about the gender pay gap. And in particular, this was a report that came out of the UK. And it had to do with this idea. They put a law into place over there saying that companies had to release their gender, their wages so that people could compare. And HSBC in particular, the bank, was the worst in the UK last year when they first reported. And the whole idea of the rule was that if they weren't asking them to do anything, to change anything, but that they just published the numbers, that somehow the public shame of the numbers being out would force them to change.
No.
Right. So here we are a year later, HBSC releases their numbers again, and their numbers have gotten worse.
That shows you.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do we do? How do we get companies to get on board with making these kinds of changes?
I think it starts individually. I think you have to really own your worth and your value just as an individual, and to go and know what you've done strategically and what you've brought to the company, the value that you have, and really present your case.
Yeah.
And to be confident about what it is you want, know what you want, and ask for what you want. And I think we have more of those conversations, than it really puts the ownership over on the company, the organization, to have to deal with some of those issues, and to do the study in terms of, are men being paid the same that the woman is being paid? And obviously in most instances, like you said, they aren't.
Yeah.
And just dealing with that and calling those who need to be maybe on the carpet.
Yeah, so we just need more individuals to get on board.
Right.
I do think there's probably some kind of rules we can put in place to try to help with all of this, but this is going to take a lot of women with putting great brains together.
Sure.
With male allies, of course,
Right.
and trying to come up with the right plan there. We have such a short time together, but I have to ask you also, Taffi, what you think about the Me2 movement and how that's impacting all of this.
It has a strong impact. I think it kind of opened Pandora's box. And here we are, and we're really not putting things in the closet any longer, and we're really dealing with them head on. So I think it's a great thing now that we're having conversations that are long overdue.
Yeah. Okay. And again, one last thing before I feel like we could probably talk for 3 hours knowing what you're all about. But, it's a year or two, I guess more than a year. It's 2 years past the Women's March and all of that, right? And like any sort of group, there's infighting we're hearing about now amongst the organizers. There's questions about women sort of trying to all get under one umbrella, when in many ways we're all very different. We come from different,
very different,
backgrounds,
and it's okay,
right? So how do we not fight amongst ourselves? How do we support each other?
I know. I think that begins internally, right? Just feeling good about who you are, where you don't feel as if I've got to be jealous of her and look at her and what is she doing,
right?
But just really so secure in who you are and your skill set, and you just rock it,
Okay, there
be
you
confident.
Go. I love that. I think we do need to try and stop. If we can't get along amongst ourselves, how are we ever going to move forward?
Right.
But women doing exactly the kind of work you're doing is going to help move that forward. So Taffi, thank you very much for spending some time with us today. Of course, we're going to post a link to all things Taffi and all of the various and sundry projects she's working on. Our now official in-house gender strategist. I love it.
Thank you for having me.